Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on November 7th, 2022 at approximately 1:17 p.m. PST. Well, the date came out really well. Anyway, I am very happy to be here. Decided it was time to really look at how do you go about reclaiming power over your life in spite of the obstacles, in spite of the setbacks. How is it all tied together, and how, pray tell, are you going to manage to capitalize on it? As in, make the most of the situation you're in. Well, it starts in one very simple fashion. Okay, and that is this neat little sign. I've showed you this before, or I've showed other people this before anyway. And that's this one here. Those four simple words. I am worth it. Okay, that's where you start. By making that simple little decision that putting the effort into your life is a good thing. Now, I'm a firm believer, back up. I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer, the tools I offer you, are the exact same tools I personally use in my own life when they apply to me. Okay, the philosophies of life I talk about are the ones I personally live by. And this takes it all the way through everything from your home life to your spiritual belief structure, whatever career you're in, whatever your hobbies are. It doesn't matter. Doesn't even matter what age bracket or income bracket you're in. And frankly, who you crawl into bed with or what color you are doesn't make any difference. These tools still apply. Okay, now the reason I put it that way is because this is the way I've lived my life pretty much my entire life. I've made mistakes. Well, that's unfortunate. I will have to get back to them. Just started doing this, so that one's going to have to wait, in spite of the fact that I do need to talk to those people because they're the ones saying up my Amazon website. I'm still waiting for things to come in, but they haven't yet. In any event, the tools I offer, I personally put to use. Okay. And now that I'm starting to get into the run of things, finally, you think about it, March 6th of 2021 is when I started doing when I started doing videos. And I'll tell you, that was after about 6 months of being really asked to. Good afternoon, Nightmare. Glad you made it. That was after about 6 months of people on Spaced Out Radio, hosted by Dave Scott. Okay, really pushed me to start getting some of this out on video, to get some of it out written. YJ, how you doing? And the reality of it is, I've now gotten to the point where if I don't get out and do it and get these videos done, it feels like something in my life is missing. Okay, so with that in mind, how do you go about reclaiming it? Well, the first thing you do is decide whether or not you're content with your life. Are you living the life you feel you should be living? Okay. If you are, this is fantastic. This is absolutely the way it's supposed to be. Problem is that most people are living the life they feel they have to. Now, whatever you do, if you're in a job you're not content with, do not just up and walk out until you have a replacement income. How you doing, rock and roll? Glad you can make it. I'm looking at locking everything together. Now, yes, I talk about the way my life has come together because of the tools I'm using. My hope is that by laying out practical, or more to the point, specific examples of how I did this, hopefully it will shear off some of the struggle that you're going through. Okay. Now, am I perfect at what I do? Absolutely not. Just to push everything sideways. I was talking to somebody the other day who made a comment that the financial tools that I've put out before people have worked to help get them almost on track. Okay, now, do I remember whose name it was? No. Does it matter to me? No, because I wouldn't be using it anyway. Okay. And, the reality of it from that standpoint is, with the tools that I offer, the same ones I personally use, I do not always do it well. Okay, so if you're hoping I'm going to stand up here, or if you're fearing I'm going to stand up and say, hey, I'm this good, I can get all of this stuff done, not a prayer. Okay, just like you, I have a tendency of procrastinating, but what I have figured out is that when you do, the only time you actually fail at something is when you give up. Okay, obstacles are not indicative of failure. It is simply an issue of making certain that you look at it and go, this is what I desire to accomplish. Now, I mentioned that all of this is tied together. And here's the way this works. The three big things in my life. Okay, I've got my own life, my own hobbies and what have you. I've got a massive project on the go. And I've shown you guys this before. Okay, this little series. Now, 2 of them are out. I'm working on tying off the third one. I'm hoping to have it out by the end of the year. This is The Birth of the Wolfpack. Okay, the sequel is, of course, this one here, The End of an Epoch. Now, The Return to Paradise, which is the final book in this trilogy. Now, bear in mind, there are 4 trilogies back to back. But the third one, I'm hoping to get out by the end of this year, but it's still touch and go whether I'll manage it. Working on it really hard, but we'll see what happens. But here's the way things went. Because of the fact that my hobby is role-playing, I play Dungeons and Dragons. I use that to develop some of the writing that I do, to put it into a context that hopefully people find entertaining. Okay, now, if you look below this video, you'll find a whole pile of different things, of different ways of getting a hold of me, and a whole list of books that I've already written. Okay. Also, if you go to rkeithandrews.com, you'll find the write-up on what the books are. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks here, we will end up getting our Amazon store up and running. Hey, Terry, glad you made it. That's the aim at this point. But I was working on the game yesterday, and all of a sudden, everything fell into place. And while I'm writing the game, parts of the storyline came into balance. Because like I've said, with the Yldrbac Chronicles, okay, there's a lot of fantastic science fiction, science fantasy writers out there. You may be one of them. There's a couple of you I've talked to that have said, look, I've got a really good story that I feel is really good, but other people have told me it's garbage, so I quit writing it. I'm telling you, there are over 8 billion people on the planet right now. Pick up the pen and start writing again. If you've got a story you feel requires telling, or that you desire to tell, well, never mind whether it requires it. Okay. Absolutely. Pick up your pen and paper or your computer keyboard or whatever you use and get it written once again. Get it done. Okay. For me, it's a question of I've got a staggering number of books that I do desire to get printed. Now, the neat part, one of the things I've said with the Yldrbac Chronicles, okay, a lot of great science fiction writers, a lot of great science fantasy writers. I know there's a few gamers that are writing books. I absolutely do. Myself, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since full-time, a minimum of, I think it's actually an average of twice a week. since 1976 in June. Okay. In the Yldrbac Chronicles, I have actually included a group of gamers. Okay, I've literally included a game of D&D a modified game of D&D in the storyline. Okay, right smack in the middle of conflict. Okay, and I am looking forward to getting the whole story out. But the other part about that is I got asked the other day by somebody. Somebody left me a message on YouTube here. Okay, they left a question about soulmates and what have you. Now, this is the other way that this all ties together. My work with soulmates, with soul families, twin flames, aliens, ancient races, all of this is handled throughout the Yldrbacian Chronicles. Okay, where I go into the detailed workings on how some of this stuff works. Not only that, and many of you have seen this before, this little book here, this is a reference manual. Now, needless to say, the races included in here, when I talk about reference, I include some of their culture, the way they look at the world, their spirituality, and of course, obviously, descriptions. Now, that's book 1. I'm working on volume 2. Okay, first priority, though, is get the pictures from book 1 done so I can get it out with the printer, with the pictures. And as I've mentioned a number of times, when volume 1 comes out with the pictures included, the people that I know that have already ordered a book, okay, I am just going to send you a free one as soon as I get it in print. Hopefully by the end of this year, but we'll see how that works. But how do you get started? The reality is you just simply you sit down wherever you are. This is when you start, not a week down the road. Okay, starting a week down the road, all that does is delay the time for you to get started. Okay. Because ultimately, since yesterday's already gone, nothing that is done in the past can be altered. Okay, you cannot travel back in time. Now, of course, if you watch the movies, there's all kinds of science fiction stories about traveling back in time. Okay, and as stories go, they are fantastic. But here's the problem. Reality doesn't work that way. There are lots of people I've heard of that say, oh, I come from a future time. Or, I came back from the future to tell you these neat little things. Well, if that were the reality, why are they still behaving in exactly the same fashion that people from today are behaving? Okay, so if you desire to change your life, I'm not going to tell you that I came from the future. Forget that noise. You take a look at my birth certificate. Do I have past life memories? You bet. Do I have plans for my future? Absolutely. But have I come from the future? No. Okay. People have mentioned that they think I'm from out of time, as it were, because I do not think like the people here, and this is just the way it is. Okay. But you take a look where you are. Now, for me, I'm looking at my office desk, and I've got the office set up nicely. I've got my computers all set up, my printer set up, my very important thing, my coffee. Okay, but while I was working the game yesterday, came up with a new character. Okay. This character in the Yldrbac Chronicles, I will be using this one so that when I'm laying out the way things work, I can actually track what's going on. I do that a lot with the figures, and do understand figures like that. Like, I still haven't finished this one, and I really should. Okay, figures like this, I paint them as a hobby. but I use them for orchestrating, for choreographing the conflicts and what have you that are going on in the storyline. Like I said, it's all connected. When you take a look in the mirror, take a look at the way you dress in your spare time. Take a look at the way you dress when you're out in public. It all connects. And they say that clothing makes the man. Well, if that were in fact the truth, then we have an interesting situation. Everybody in the military, anybody in any given military, in postal service, in the police department, any of the places, including schools, including private schools, where a uniform is mandatory. If clothing actually made the person, these people would all behave the same. Guess what? They don't. However, clothing can affect and does affect the way you feel about yourself. Okay, it was funny when I was gifted this T-shirt. Okay, now I don't know. I call it a T-shirt. Some people call it a tank top, a muscle shirt. I don't care what the label is. Okay, but I was gifted it, and it was funny because the day I got gifted it, the temperature here dropped. My son looks at me and goes, "Dad, the temperature just plummeted, and now you're putting on a tank top." I'm like, "No, I was overheating, so I put on the shirt that was available." But you take a look in the mirror and go, "What am I content with? Where do I go from here?" Now, I'm really happy to see, that things are starting to move, and I do know. I understand the consistency is important, and if I could find a way to say this is exactly what I'm going to be on, I am absolutely certain I could get more people would be joining us. Okay, but unfortunately, my life doesn't work that way very well. My life tends to get a little screwy on occasion, so I get in here when I can. Now, right about now, like I have to be at work for by 1:45. By 2:45 my time, okay, Pacific time, I have to be done here and ready to start work. Well, technically, I don't have to be ready until 3:00. So I will be here as long as I can get away with. But pick a direction. Doesn't matter where your life is standing. Doesn't matter how you got to where you are. The reality is every single one of you, every single one of us is right here, right now. And this is the only time you can change your life for you. And rest assured, all the guidance in the world isn't going to make any difference if you don't pick up the tools and work with them. Now, I will tell you, do I encourage you to listen to what I'm talking about? Certainly. There's only 3 laws I follow. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. Okay. Now, if you compare all of the guidelines you work with, whether they are personal, they're a support group, they're parental guidance, they're a religion or a spiritual path, it doesn't matter. Look at all the ones you go through. I have not come across one that does not fit in those 3 laws. Okay. So you pick what you're content with and start working. Now, I write on a computer. Okay, but the reason I keep paperwork handy is so that I can make simple notes to myself, like here. Okay, yeah, you can't really see. I'm sure you can't read it. This is a list of the actual gamers. Okay, the actual characters that are in the game that I'm writing, that are in the Yldrbacian Chronicles. How you doing, Sue? Glad you made it. YJ, I get a kick out of that. YJ just asked, has anyone noticed over the last several days that some people who are usually off have been going right off the deep end? The funny part there, YJ, is I've been noticing that for years. Okay. And don't get me wrong, I've questioned for, well, that would have been pretty accurate. I was about to say I've questioned for centuries whether or not I've completely lost my mind. Okay. And you can figure that out for yourself. I can tell you, I spent years with psychiatrists, psychologists, and every single one of the people in those professions, including students, have said the exact same thing. When I'm asked, how do you tell if you're losing your mind? Without exception, they've turned around and said, if you're asking, am I losing my mind? The answer is no. Because if you were losing your mind, you wouldn't ask. I look at the number of people that go to the various churches and the various temples and covens and the whole 9 yards. And, given that, and people are more to the point able to go, I encourage you to find a group that supports you, that you find supporting. But I caution you very strongly, if you're going to a group, that if you've got somebody standing at the front of the group going, fear everything around you, okay, if you've got somebody doing that, okay, you might want to reconsider which direction you're going. Okay, I will tell you, do I believe in God? Absolutely. And has it created some interesting situations? You bet. Okay, do I believe in Christ? Certainly. As for the other religions, quite honestly, they're all part and parcel of the same thing. Okay, even when I talk to the different races I deal with, they all have their spiritual paths. Okay, if I pull this book open, for instance, okay, and again, this really does boil down to how do you claim power over your life? Well, the way to do it is to get up and literally put it to use. Now, if I take a look at this, okay, when we take a look at the Arboreans, and this is quite seriously what an Arborean can look like. But Arboreans run from your leg, and not every plant is an Arborean. Okay, do understand that. Okay, but Arboreans are anything, can be any plant, all the way from a blade of grass, all the way up to a full tree. Okay, that is what they are. Now, their spiritual guide, they call Yldrbac. You would call Mother Earth or Gaia. Okay, that'd be one of the biggest issues. Okay, and then when you take a look at the Archons, now the Archons are a microscopic race that grow as they evolve. They grow to be a planet-sized entity. They too have their own god, their own spiritual guide. They refer to it as Source. Okay. Other names that have been used are the Prime Originator. Okay. Then you have Nataj. Some races worship Nataj. Okay. And that is the reptilian. That is a reptilian, if you will, deity. But every one of these races, humans included, do exactly the same thing. When you're having trouble, what do? You turn and talk to somebody that you feel will lend you an ear and maybe give you some comfort. Whether this is a spiritual entity or a person, doesn't matter. Okay. If it's somebody that brings you a sense of self, brings you a sense of support. Okay. And I cannot thank those of you that join me here for the continual support, the encouragement I get from you guys. Am I perfect? No, definitely not. Am I an expert? No, but here's something to consider. My brother, who passed away earlier this year, used to identify an expert in this fashion. He goes, an expert is an unknown drip under pressure. Okay. And I'm like, okay, that works for me. Okay, and I asked him to explain. He goes, well, think about it. It's called an expert. Take the X, indicates unknown. And a spurt is a bit of water or a bit of liquid that pops out under pressure. Okay, I've heard way too many people say that they are an expert in something, and then they stand there going, I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about and what they're talking about. They're telling themselves they don't have a clue. I found out a long time ago I know just enough to know I don't know enough. So what I did with the energy in my office, first and foremost, clear the clutter out of the way. If you don't believe it helps, take a look at your primary workspace, wherever you work on your finances, and get the junk out of the way. If you look at my older videos, you'll see a whole pile of junk all over these walls here, all over the place. It's all been swapped out, in case you hadn't noticed. But I didn't just hide it somewhere else. I either put it where it belonged, okay, or I turned around and sent it off to somebody that could use it. I remember I had a recliner one day. I just literally finished paying it off and went, it's paid off and I just don't have a use. I don't have the room for it. So I went to a neighbor that was just moving in and I said, look, I've got a recliner. It's in great shape, but I said, I don't have the room for it anymore. I says, would you like it? And he goes, well, what's it going to cost me? It's a little bit of muscle, and I want it off my floor. I want it out of my living room. Okay, this is how much money really means from my standpoint. The reality is there's a lot of people out there, and you may be one of them, that looks at the material world and goes, the more money I have, the more stuff I have, the more successful I am. Well, I'll tell you, I'm getting rid of stuff left, right, and center. And I feel more successful today than I have in my entire life, really. I'm still not on top of the game yet. I will get there. Okay. But you start one step at a time and you start right where you're standing. Okay. This neat little book. Whoop, I'm going to fall over if I do that. This little book here. Okay. That's got the backbone of how I changed my life. Okay, it's also thin. I'm a firm believer that taking forever to say something, really, I'm not a tree and it doesn't take that long to piece it together. So what I've done is everything that I've gotten out of my house either went to recycling, went to the garbage if it was true garbage, or went to somebody that could use it. Now, do other people, if I take it down to like Value Village, okay, which is a secondhand shop out here, okay, and people can say what they will about it. They will make money off it. I don't care. I want it out of my place. Hey, world, how you doing? Glad you made it. It's neat. I mean, I'm looking at this and World Bigfoot Radio goes, the Duke is in the house. Hate to tell you this, but the Duke died, I think, about 20 years ago. Okay, but that's okay. That works well. I always knew the Duke as John Wayne. Of course, it was neat. My father used to have coffee with John Wayne. And for those of you watching wrestling, my father used to sit down and have a beer periodically with a chap by the name of Gene Kiniski from the British Bulldogs. Well, you are very right. You're absolutely right, world. He was just an actor. He was just a person. Okay. And I mean, the reality is, if we look at the other term for the name for the name Duke, so many people, or like when you look at monarchies, dukes are a rank as well. And I don't mean offense to anybody. I hope everybody realizes that. Well, I mean, the reality of it from my standpoint is everybody in the world is equally valuable. They are worth just as much. Hey, Kanga, how you doing? From my end, it really boils down to a simple issue. When you go to change the way your life is going, like if you look back, 9 years now, my hair used to be way down here past my elbows. And I just one day decided I'd had enough. I was changing the way that was going. Okay. Now, I take a look at the reality And some of the people that I see coming through the chat room, especially when I start looking at people that have done really well, and I don't know numbers, where it comes to audiences and what have you, but people like World Bigfoot that have a show up and running, and it's been up and running, and I suspect for a number of years at this point, because I seem to recall you being around for quite a while. Okay, but that was, there's somebody that decided this is what I desire to do. They went out, put the effort into it, and here they are. Okay, and I'll tell you, that is one of those things that you look at and go, did did World do a job? 7 or 8 years now, well done. I look at that and go, there, and I will encourage you, if you're striving to get something up and running, talk to somebody that has been there, somebody that knows what has done it successfully. Okay, when there's a number of people that come through here that I see on various different various different live streams, that have radio shows of their own. When you're going to open the door and start a live stream, or start doing video, talk to these people. They have done it successfully. Now, myself, would I go back to running a radio station of my own again? No. I used to have a channel where I did bring in guests, and I gave it up a long time ago. Of course, I also ended up becoming a whole lot more reclusive. But when you desire to change something, absolutely talk to somebody that has done it. Absolutely, where they have successfully done it. Where it comes to writing, absolutely, I can tell you how to go about the steps. I can walk you through it. Am I an expert? Do I have a master class? No, not a prayer. Because quite frankly, in my eyes, I've got more experience than some. But am I an expert, or do I know exactly how to go through all the pitfalls? No, not a prayer. But you pick what you desire to do. Once you get a focus on it, like for me, I decided this was the path I was going down. Once you've picked a path, take a look at whatever you're doing, whatever else is going on in your life, and redirect the energy so that whatever is holding you back from that goal, from that dream, you can put it aside and you can redirect the energy, redouble your efforts, and thereby attain the goals you're aiming for. The reality of it is that once you've got a goal in mind, there are very few things in this world you cannot accomplish. There's a lot of things. That's an excellent way of looking at that world. And yeah, from the times I have talked to you, I see the same thing. I hear the same thing from you regularly. I don't want to just talk about what's going. I want to see evidence. I desire to show people this is the reality. This is why I talk about the tools that I work with. These are ones I personally am putting to use. This is why I know they work. Greetings, Ange. Glad you can make it. I'm a firm believer that theory is great. And talking about experiences with no practical evidence is a great way to kill an afternoon. But I came to the conclusion, that realistically, talking about it is great. Doing it is so much better. And this is where that whole thing about whether you're happy with your job comes in. I know way too many people, they'll go, I don't like my job, so I quit. And now I'm sitting on welfare, or I'm sitting on social services, and I can't find a job to my liking. Bad news. The odds of you getting a job that pays $60,000 a year with you sitting on your tail doing nothing, not good odds. Now I take a look at the situation here, where I'm sitting here. I've been doing the videos now for about a year and a half. Okay, I've got no interest. I've got no intention on shutting it down. Okay, but it really boils down to this: pick the direction you desire to go in. Now, one of the key factors there is, and I'm a firm believer that lists work. Okay, I've taken my list off of paper now and put it onto my computer. Okay, so I can't exactly pick it up. I mean, it's pretty easy to understand. When we're talking about a list, to make sure you stay on top of the game, start off with one item, obviously, but get 3 on the list. And you write down what the goal is. Make sure you keep it to 15 minutes to half an hour. Okay, if it's longer than that, break it down into 2 parts. I actually go through that in this. Okay, in this particular book. Okay, where I literally tell you, and I'll tell you here too. Okay, the trick to the whole 9 yards is to get organized, to break it down into smaller parts. There's an old African proverb that goes, "How do you eat an elephant?" Well, you eat it one bite at a time. How do you clear clutter out of your house? One shelf at a time. Okay, almost everything in my office right now, almost everything here that you see, is tied to either writing or painting my little figures. But the whole thing is my creative studio for writing the Yldrbacian Chronicles. And for that matter, for writing the other 30 books I'm working on. Actually, I think it's only with them, it's about 20 extra. Hey, Joe, glad you made it. So you take a look at the way your life is and you really start moving things out of the way. Absolutely, YJ. YJ's just mentioned that evidence tells the real story. Okay, and it really does. People can talk about whatever they desire, but the proof is in the pudding. Now, I talk about some of the things I've gone through. Okay, some of the past lives I've been that I remember. Can I prove them? Not a prayer. Can I prove, if I really wanted to, that I've been bankrupt twice? Okay, and I've landed on my feet. Okay, can I prove that? Certainly. I can even show you how to do it. I'm not going to turn around and show you how to go bankrupt. Okay, or how to dig that crater. From my way of thinking, that's counterproductive. But I will tell you, in most cases, people that have found that they're in financial straits. Okay, many times people that find they're in financial straits, I go and talk to a financial advisor. And the guy will turn around and talk you into going bankrupt or orderly payment of debt. Okay, or some sort of a payment arrangement. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But I will tell you this. I was guided the first time I went bankrupt, and those of you that have had financial struggles may just drop your jaw on this one. I was guided by professionals the first time to go bankrupt on $6,000. Okay, now on $6,000, there is no reason on the planet I should have ever gone bankrupt. They were only interested by the feel of it, from my perspective, in getting my money, so they got their pay. Okay, the people I legitimately owed the money to didn't get paid, and I ended up destroying my credit rating. Okay, then probably 15 years later, because they didn't walk through and make certain I had the tools to avoid it, I ended up going bankrupt a second time. Again, at a professional's guidance. Okay, and when you look at that, the second time was on 14,000. These are stupid numbers. Okay, and I will tell you, if you feel like you're on, now I am not a financial advisor from the standpoint of, I never went to school to figure it out. Okay, I learned how to deal with the finances by trial and error. And if you're in that bind where you're thinking, I just can't get ahead of it, absolutely drop me a line. I'll be more than happy to walk you through it. You know, the reality behind it is the only people, in my opinion, that ever made any money out of somebody going bankrupt were the people calling themselves bankruptcy trustees. Okay. Now they're doing a job, and I will admit, when I declared bankruptcy, my stress collapsed around the finances. Okay. I didn't learn a thing from it, but I did lose the stress. And that can sometimes be the real critical factor. Same thing. Okay. I didn't have all the stuff in my house sorted around. And I'll lay it out to you this way. When you look at your house, consider it like the human body. Okay. It's got different organs. It's in different parts of the house. I find correlate with different organs in the corporeal body. Okay. Your heart is a three chamber heart. The kitchen, the dining room, and the living room. Okay. When you're talking about the waste disposal, you're looking at the sink, at the washroom and your laundry room. This is where you have waste disposal. Plus, of course, wherever you put your garbage. Okay. The arteries in the home, in the house, are your hallways, the connective links between the different rooms. Okay. The nice little part about it, you know, Joe, I love this. The world we live in is it appears to be getting crazier by the day. For the length of time I've been watching this happen, this is a rerun. Okay, we're having a rerun of some of the worst movies in recorded history. Okay, but it's not so much the world is getting crazier, at least not in my opinion, so much as people are noticing it more. But there's three types of people I've run into in this world. Those that make things happen, which is about 1% of the population. Those that watch things happen, which is about 4% of the population. And those that wonder what happened. Okay, which is about 95% of the population. Okay, and I'm probably overstating that on percentage splits. I'm still a firm believer that 90 to 95% of people out there are decent people striving to to make a better world. Okay, but we are being bombarded by so much in the way of the negative world that people are overlooking it. So you take a look in your house, understand whether we are talking about your house or we're talking about your business. It's the same thing. The rooms still apply. Okay. The bedroom is obviously where you sleep. That's where you get your rest and recuperation. Okay. When you look at wherever you work on your finances, that is the brain of both your house and your home. And here's the difference between the two. The house is the physical place you live in. The home is the feeling of it. Okay. Good afternoon, JCL. Glad you can make it. Hope your day's been going well. As we work together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, there are no doubt going to be people that do not like the idea of getting things running smoothly. Of course, most of those people are sitting in a position where they're going, I'm making lots of money, which, by the way, you can't take with you. I've got all kinds of people that answer to me. And, I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why you may not desire to give things up. Up until the beginning of May of this year, when I was looking at consulting fees. Okay, because I've been consulting professionally since 1986. Okay, so if you look at that, we're approaching 40 years in that I've been doing actual paid consulting work for. But while everybody's talking about prices rising, okay, and about inflation going up, to me, stopping inflation is pretty much black and white. Freeze your wages, freeze the prices, and inflation cuts to a zero. It's a flat line. Okay, but people don't want to do that. The thing I've seen is a lot of people desire the world to change, but the massive majority of people don't desire to change their own world. Now, when I say that, like I said, up until the beginning of May, I was charging $180 an hour, okay, to just literally guide people and say, okay, this is how to get your life back on track. But on May 1st of 2022, I went, this is stupid. This is just absolutely ridiculous. We talk about inflation. We talk about the world going nuts. We talk about things that everybody's reporting, talking about all these bad things going on. And, the reality is this. We can talk about it. But like Robin Williams said years ago, Robin Williams, for those of you that don't know, was a television comedian and a live comedian. And he made a comment one day. He goes, there are thousands of plans for peace and virtually no action. Okay. So what I did is I went, okay, I'm talking about inflation. The prices keep going up. Scrap it. And I took my price and I'm not saying kill your price to this degree. Okay. But I went, okay, I'm charging $180. So I'm going to share my hourly wage. I cut it in half. Now, the reality of it is I've been doing this for 40 years. Well, in all fairness, 49 years. As of June of 2023, I've been doing it for 50 years. Okay. So, the reality of the situation is this. If you desire, or more to the point, when you desire your life to change, it is absolutely imperative that you pick up the tools and make it happen. Okay. And for pity's sakes, very important. And, people like World will absolutely understand this. If you desire something to work, you have to keep at it. You've got to stay consistent. You've got to stay persistent. Okay. That's just the reality behind it. Because if you don't put the effort into it, it's not going to happen. You can talk about change until the cows come home. Okay. Now, if I go back to 2007, and this is where you run into a question, are you going to believe everything that you're told, or are you going to make up your own mind? 2007, my eyes were so bad that literally I could hold my glasses right there, that close, and I could not physically see them. At this point, because of the fact I decided I wasn't buying into it, okay, I managed to get my eyes up to the point where, for reading, I'm at 20/20 eyesight now. Now, here's the thing. Why do I say here? So let's go sideways a little. If you're one of these people that is wearing glasses and you're looking at it going, my eyes aren't working and they're collapsing, I'm going to go blind, I don't like that. Here's a reality for you. Okay. And this is the method I used to change my eyesight because I've never had surgery for it. I've never had any sort of operation of any form. Okay. And no medication for it at all. But I found a book online. Okay. And at the time it wasn't online. I ended up stumbling across it in a secondhand store, in all fairness. But it was a book called The Bates Method to Better Eyesight Without Glasses. Now, I happen to have the no, that is not what it's called. I have the ISBN for it here. If you're interested in that book, it gives you the scientific reason for how eyes work and how they collapse. Okay, so I took that information. I've got the ISBN number here for it. I took that information, I read the book, and added to that the study and the course I took in optics. Okay, that explains why your eyes get weaker as you get older if you're wearing glasses. Now, you'll notice I'm not wearing mine right now, primarily because my hand's moving like this. Okay, really hard to hang on to glasses at that point. But I can almost, without my glasses now, I can almost read the chat room without my glasses. If I move a little closer, I'll be able to read them. It's still fuzzy. Okay, but there was a time when I couldn't see this monitor and that far away from me. Just wasn't possible. But in a nutshell, here's what happens. And no, I am not an optician. I've never taken a course never took a course on ophthalmology. There we go. But I did take a course in optics. And your eye naturally changes shape. It naturally adjusts on a micro adjustments all the time, every time you look somewhere. Okay, so it's constantly shifting from distant focus to close. Okay, and what I found was this: when I took the course in optics, you put a set of glasses on your face, and first and foremost, the optic nerve can no longer compensate because the sunlight, the light is only coming in through one direction, and it's being refracted in one pattern. Okay, so the second you take your glasses off, your eyes can't adjust well. I agree with you wholeheartedly there, Joe. I absolutely do. This is one of those things when I talk about everybody, I look at biology. Okay, Joe's just saying there are too many people out there that women are men, that women are men and men are women, and the reality is this. Okay, and I'm not talking about what you identify as. What people identify as, that's their issue. Okay, but when we take a look at the human genome, you've only got two genders. Period. I was absolutely appalled the other day. I saw a qualified, so-called qualified MD that came out and said that there are markers that indicate that humans have 5 genders. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking at it going, sorry, you got 2. I don't care about the micro adjustments. If we do go with the micro adjustments and the minor cellular differences and who identifies as what, okay, you're finding new and exciting ways to separate the species. Okay, there's an old saying that goes, united we stand, divided we fall. Well, at this current rate, if you take a look at what the indicators are, inside the next 10 years, we are going to have just a little over 8 billion genders. Okay, because everybody's going to say, oh, I'm this different. And, there's this little difference. I don't identify as this. Okay. Well, that is an interesting way to put it, but ultimately I see it the same way. Okay. The reality, the reality is our world. To me, it doesn't matter if people identify as something. Okay. You can identify as what you will. You worship who you will. I knew a chap when I was growing up on the island. He worshipped a light bulb. That was his god. And his parents took it into consideration, and they made sure every 2 weeks, regular as clockwork, they changed that light bulb. Even though it wasn't burned out, they would change that light bulb to make sure it never burnt out. Because this kid would go into the closet, he would kneel down and he would pray to his God. The problem happened when the parents forgot to change the light bulb, and the light bulb burnt out while the kid was in the middle of praying. Well, the kid was in his mid-20s by this point. And, he went in the middle of praying, the light bulb burned out. His mind snapped, and he ended up being institutionalized. Now, do I relate to most of the people here? Honestly, no. And don't take that as an offense, whatever you do. Okay, I just do not think the same way others do. And I'm just not going into the detail on that one. I relate to certain aspects. I aspire to follow certain things that many of you do. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing there, YJ. I look at it and just go, you've got female and you got male, and that's it. I do know and I got to remember which race it was. I got it written down somewhere. I've only run across one species that it's got 3 genders. Okay. And that specific, I can't remember the name of it offhand. I only just came across it. But literally, the way that works is the male gets to, in the male, one male gets together with the female. Okay. And then they each independently get together with the null. Okay, with the non-male, non-female, as essentially an active incubator. Okay, but that's their way of doing it. There's all sorts of ways of reproduction happening, but the reality is when we start pushing for these identifiers. Okay, somebody over in England one day, one of my contacts, a few months ago, they sent me a ticket to get into a live event in England, and I could not believe it. On the ticket, like over in England, this ticket, apparently when you go to a live event, because of the problems they've had, you have to put your name, your age, name, age, birth date, gender, all these identifiers when you're entering. The ticket stub he sent me, or more to the point, the picture of the ticket stub he sent me, had 52 genders. Okay. Now, I mean, it's absolutely insane in my opinion. Okay. But can you picture any store? Everybody should have, every washroom has their own washroom. Okay. Picture that. You go into any store where it's got to have 52 washrooms. Okay, and we can get really sidetracked there. We can get really sidetracked on the religious side of things too. But how do you maintain a sense of self in all of that? The trick is very simple. The trick to getting your life back into your control is pick a direction that you personally desire to go in. And as long as you're not deliberately, or for that matter, accidentally, but as long as you're not deliberately going out of your way to hurt somebody or to stop somebody from living their life, then have a happy. Okay. Change the energy around you. Alter what's going on in order to accommodate the goals that you've got for you. Yep, that would do it. Yeah, the reality is whether you're male, female, or, it doesn't matter. There is the occasional time when a child will be born with both genders. At that point, a parent absolutely, in order to make it functional for the munchkin, absolutely needs to pick a gender to raise them as. Okay. But we have to remember that even though you identify yourself as one way, you look at religion in one fashion, it doesn't matter. Inside your own home, make your own rules, make your own patterns, but remember, you've got to follow the laws of the land in which you are. Meaning, when you lay out rules in your own home, just like you would expect people to follow your rules, when you go into theirs, follow their rules. If you don't like their rules, don't go there. Okay. We all have to take this into consideration. This is where karmic law number 2 comes in really handy. Okay. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. If you desire people to be honest with you, be honest with them. God told me one day, the punishment for a liar is not that nobody will believe them. The real punishment for a liar is that a liar will not believe anybody else. I love that one, World. World Bigfoot Radio just wrote in. I saw a restroom sign with an outline of Bigfoot and a dog man, and it said, "Whatever, just wash your hands." And from my standpoint, really, that's all it boils down to. If it's the reality is, if you ever go into a man's washroom or a woman's washroom, they're built, the priority part of it is built the same way. Okay. And the same thing. Rich people, doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're happy, you laugh, you smile. Okay, if you're sad, you'll have a frown on, you may cry. When you suffer a loss, you fight depression. The amount of money you've got doesn't do a thing for it. Okay, and no matter who you're crawling into bed with, you go through the same thing. I would lay odds that most people put their pants on one leg at a time, regardless of their gender or income. Okay, they still put the pants on one leg at a time. And I will tell you this, and this is the thing that you really have to look at. I take a look at the reality behind what we're doing and how our life is going, and go, okay, all the material stuff in the world, have whatever you like. I like my luxuries. I like having a roof over my head. I like the fact that I can close the windows and start to overheat. I don't like the overheating part, but all I got to do is get off my tail and open the window. I'll be fine. Okay, I like my luxuries. Don't get me wrong. But if you desire to change your life, you have to start making changes to your life. The rest of the world is not going to change its way of dealing with things just to make you happy. Okay. I mean, I've talked to people that think that they should. But you'll notice whenever I'm talking about people, and I've told people this, if I say something that doesn't apply to you, okay, then by all means, don't take it on. And that being said, I am going to flat out apologize to World Bigfoot here. The reality is, because I have a short memory where it comes to names, okay, I tend to look at them a little differently. But there is absolutely, everybody has, everybody's name has been used somewhere else. Apparently, there's some sort of superstar soccer player over in Great Britain, in the British Isles there, by the name of Keith Andrews. And I'll tell you, I run 2 steps, I'll dislocate my knee. Okay, I still go by the same name. It really boils down to a name is simply whatever it is. A name is simply a label so you can identify who the other person is. I wrote a poem once called that literally, what I called it was words and emotions. Okay, and simply put, it starts out with, words are simply labels for emotions that we feel. Okay. A name is the most important thing in anybody's life, in any walk of life. Okay. Now, the reason I refer to them to you guys by whatever's left is because, quite frankly, I can't put 2 and 2 together. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I meet people on a regular basis. Even the people in my own apartment block, they'll tell me their name, and it's like in one ear and out the other. It's not that I don't care. At least I keep trying to tell myself it's not. But the reality is, my memory for names has been a challenging point all my entire life. But I will tell you, you go into a restaurant, go into a hotel, go into any business, talk to any stranger. If you call them by name, you will get a better response out of them than if you call them miss, ma'am, or worse, some of the names that waitresses get called, especially in bars. Can't speak to what guys get called. Okay. Of course, you don't see many male bartenders in a bar, or male waiters in a bar. Okay. Once in a while you do, but not usually. But the reality of it is, if you desire to be treated better, if you desire to be treated differently, or you desire your life to take on a different approach, absolutely, there are ways to do it. The first one is to get straight in your own head Do you desire to be known as a decent person or as a problem child? Okay, you'll notice when you're dealing with other people, if you've got a smile on your face most of the time, they will treat you in a much better fashion than if you're screaming at people. Okay, so take a look at the way your life is. Are you content with it? If not, it is time to start changing it. Now, how do you go? Where do you start changing? Wherever you are, right this second, right here, right now. This is where you change it. This is also when you change it, by the way. Okay, ultimately, it boils down to an issue of it's up to you to make the changes that are necessary to get your life on track. Now, am I one of these people that will look? I know a lot of people look at sports and go, that's where all my focus is. Absolutely, it's great. Where I've put a lot of my focus lately is I've been binge watching the Agent of Shields of the Agents of Shield on Disney. Okay, for me, I do that while I'm writing, while I'm working, while I'm painting. Basically, I've got it running in the background so I can watch it. But I have no clue how to do only one thing at a time because it gets boring. Okay, that's me. The trick to it is this: when you get an idea in your head, when you pick a goal you desire to go and to accomplish, break it down. I looked at it before. I wonder what I'm sitting on here. I don't know, so I'm going to go find out. I looked at it before, and I was watching the numbers of people, the numbers of subscribers that I've got, and the reality of it is this. I was looking at it a little wrong, but I do set markers. When you get to a certain point, what's the next step? I do the same thing, by the way, with money on the climbing side and with weight on the dropping side. You set a goal, you set a marker, and as soon as you hit it, change that marker to something else. Okay, I'm just taking a look right now at my own site, just so I've actually got accurate information. And the thing is, I'm striving to find ways to make things more enjoyable, more enjoyable, more informative, more interesting for you guys. Now, the reality of it is, I use this in this time now to really take hold of my own life, kind of work it like a video journal. Okay, I used to write all the time, but quite frankly, this is actually working reasonably well. But when you desire to change your life, you literally have to start. Like I'm looking at this right now, and my YouTube channel currently I'm quite happy to say, has 317 subscribers. Am I looking at getting up higher? Yes, because from what I gather, when I get to the point of having a thousand subscribers, then I can start looking at actually generating a little income. Now, the thing is, YouTube makes more money. Absolutely. Right now they don't pay me. This is all done for free, obviously. As many of you and people like you will know full well, this takes a lot of work, an awful lot of effort. And the fact you've been going at for 7 or 8 years just says you've really got your head on focused. Now, either you're focused on what you desire, or you've got a stubborn streak that said, I started doing this, I'm not quitting. Okay. And, we go through those things. Everybody goes through those points. You're working hard at something and just not making a lot of headway. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. If I go back 3 months, I was cooking off anywhere from $300 to $400 a month at a restaurant. And only at one, by the way, because I don't like cooking. But I've now cut it way back. As a matter of fact, last week was funny because last week I left my house on Monday morning, to actually take the garbage out to the garbage bin. Now, bear in mind, I live in an apartment. Okay, but I never left the apartment for until Saturday morning. Okay, I just don't go anywhere. This is what I mean by I became reclusive, and I'm recommending that. I will tell you that's not necessarily a good thing for most people. For me, I'm quite content with it. Okay, I get a lot of things done at home. I don't deal with a lot of the day-to-day stresses. But you pick the direction you desire. One goal at a time. Okay, and break them down to 15-minute to half-hour tasks. That way you can check them off and go, okay, I'm making headway with this. Okay, absolutely imperative. From my standpoint, it's simple. And this is one of the reasons why I'll end up closing this down probably within the next, what time are we here? Within the next 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to have to log off here because I have to get to work. But, like I said, I've tied together my life, my writing, my hobbies. Okay. All of them are tied together right now. And I am going to be going into, as topics come up, a couple of things I've dealt with in the Chronicles and I am working on other books for, okay, is how do you become successful? How do past lives affect today? How can you tell if you've had a past life or if a memory is your imagination or is something real? I'm fortunate. Most of the past lives I talk about, I have had independent, unsolicited strangers identify me from said lifetimes, telling me things I already knew I'd been going through. Yeah, in all fairness, and I appreciate that there, world. My goal, in all fairness, is not about the money. My money just doesn't drive me. Guy offered me and sent me a contract from Hollywood one day. Don't know the company offhand. I've still got the contract, but they sent me a contract. They wanted to tell my life story, and I looked at the contract and went, "It's not going to happen. I'm not signing it." The guy goes, "But you've got a fascinating life. You don't realize how much money you're turning down." I looked at the guy and I says, "Oh, I know exactly how much money I'm turning down. What you're not getting is how little I care about that money." Now, do I concern myself with money at this point? Certainly. I'm 59 years old. The theory is I could live another 20, 30 years. And it would be nice to have the money coming in to be able to accommodate that. This is one of the reasons why I'm putting these books together. Now, the reality of it is this. Okay. This one came about because of the fact that I was telling so many people the same thing on how to turn their life around. Real simple methods. Okay. How to get organized. How a simple thing like putting a smile on your face. Hey, Chad, glad you made it. Something as simple as putting a smile on your face. Whether it's a real smile, a heartfelt one, a forced smile, or a painted one, it doesn't matter. They all have the same impact. They will improve your health, they'll improve your energy, your sense of self-worth, your communicative capacity. It's all interrelated. Now, when it came to this one, okay, this is because I've talked to so many people and tell them the same thing regarding organization and how to figure out what your business is doing and how it's supposed to go. And again, I know how to do it. Okay, but the reality of it is I've been sitting on my business since 2015. As it turns out, August 11th of 2015. Okay, where I've been sitting on business, basically doing nothing with it until the last year where I started deciding, okay, it's time to actually work. And the reason I hadn't been doing anything and call it an excuse. I do. But my job was paying the bills quite nicely. There will come a time where I won't be working for the company I've been working for. The writing will continue until I drop dead. I'm pretty certain of that one. Then we have this one. Okay. This one came about because of the fact that I had so many people on Spaced Out Radio asking so many questions about the various races, and I have never considered myself an expert at it. Okay. Am I a specialist? Certainly. Okay, so I ended up putting this. This is simply a reference manual. Okay, but it's because so many people were asking the same questions. I figured, well, let's get it down on paper. Then we've got these two. Well, in all fairness, this one here was written for my son. This is a children's book. Didn't realize that was open like that. Probably easier to read the title if I do it this way. This was literally written for my eldest son. Okay, so I put it in on print. And of course, then the sequel was just a natural side effect. And that's this one. But these were designed as children's stories for people. You know, they're simply, as you can see by the name. Okay, that is literally what it's about. Now, the fact of the matter is, they were written simply to get the story out. Okay, the monetary side has been, shall we say, not exactly a high priority. Now, this is the one that got really complicated, because this came about because of a grade 10 English project. Hey, Jeffrey, how we doing? You know, and this whole story, I am now very focused on getting the entire 12 volumes out. As you can see, I've only got 2 so far. But I am getting an Amazon store set up to actually do the sales and what have you. You know, the PTSD there, Joe, when I was, where it comes to the doctors, I spent 3 years in military laboratories. And, you know, not a word of a lie, good, you can believe it if you can believe it or not. But I spent 3 years watching a total of 197 childhood friends that I had get murdered in front of my eyes as they tried to bring my senses up online, culminating in my being murdered and sent to the morgue. And at 5 years old, they diagnosed me dead, shipped me off to the morgue. I didn't agree, so I left. So we start there. And then, of course, with the dentist, about 15, 20 years ago, because my immune system is so high, I'm essentially immune to local anesthetic. Okay, between my immune system and my metabolism, I told the dentist that the freezing hadn't taken. Well, he wouldn't listen to me, and I ended up extracting 2 teeth without anesthetic. To this day, I cannot walk into the hospital or into a dentist's office without having major problems. Okay, so I just flat out avoid going to the doctor. You know, have I been? Yes. But I also have, and because of the PTSD, I cannot, you know, I really cannot bring myself to go there. And I've told my kids, I have a heart attack. If I'm not unconscious, I'm not going. You know, I did end up with a stroke 4 years ago, and I'm still in the process of recovering from it. But that's where the PTSD came from. When I went to leave the hospital after my heart attack, it's only about 50 yards from the elevator to the exit to the hospital. And with 7 people trying to keep me calm and trying to keep me grounded, as it were, okay, it took me 45 minutes to walk that 50 yards to get outside. Okay. You know, and I mean, that really that's the long and the short of it. Anxiety is no fun. There's a lot of people that suffer from anxiety, and they'll be told, oh, you suffer from PTSD. The first time I ran into a person suffering from PTSD, I was only 12 years old-ish. And it was on a military base, and somebody dropped a pickle jar on the other side of the counter. Well, this guy in full military gear tried crawling underneath the counter, underneath one of the shelving units, and he was just shaking and screaming at the top of his lungs. Okay, now why, when the clerks come around the corner and saw me, because I went to him right away to try and help bring him back to reality, as it were, or bring him back to functional reality. Okay, I waved the clerks off and they left me to it. So here I am, 11, 12 years old, talking a guy down. And I'll tell you, the man was white-faced. He was absolutely clammy. He could not focus. And I do not know what his name was, so let's not go there. Okay. But many people suffer from anxiety. And a panic attack can feel very much like a heart attack. Okay. For me, it's really a simple issue. When I have a heart attack, I turn colors. I go a really neat gray. Tell you, that makes people not happy. But when you look at your life, reclaiming power over your own life boils down to one very simple issue. You have to make the decision. You're going to do the work. And speaking of work, I'm going to have to bring this to a close, but I want to thank you so very much for joining me today. I'm really happy you did. Love some of the comments coming through the chat room today. I really do. And I will be back again. Until then, though, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.